Hello everyone, and thanks for tuning in to The Medium by Design. Today's subject is a very controversial one. There are many opinions about this subject, suicide, and there's a lot of religious doctrine behind it. And I would go into the assumption that we have a lot of programming about suicide. And as you know from any videos that you watch of mine, I just take dictation from the spiritual side, or I get a vision. I'm told things, it's very clear to me, usually, what they're trying to convey. So I'm going to tell a couple of stories about suicide cases that I've been part of and the different outcomes of those cases. So the first one came up when I was a minister. I used to be a guest minister and was asked to speak at different churches. And the one that I was the main minister at the time, I would do readings for that church, and the congregation of that church, or anybody who was in the area that heard of me and would come for a session. It was an incredible time. I was very funny as a minister and very poignant and very articulate, just the way I am now. And they loved me there. It was just a beautiful life experience for me. So the first case that came up when I was working there, a woman came in the morning, and she had a very disheveled, very broken appearance. She just did not appear well at all. Now, remember, I do not know why the people come to me, unless I was to ask Spirit before they show up, and maybe I would get a heads up. But this was not the case. So don't make any assumptions that I knew anything before I met this woman. I don't know this woman. So she comes in, and she really does look a wreck, and she's actually kind of distorted. She's in so much emotional pain that her face is distorted. Okay, that gives you a picture of who I'm looking at. Okay, so she's sitting there, and then right away in the reading, her son shows up, and he's 21. He was 21 years old, and he committed suicide. And he explains the reason why he committed suicide. And it was very, very rational. He was not on drugs. He was not irrational. He was not crazy. Depends depends on how you define crazy, because he might say he felt crazy, because the difficulty that he explained to us was a mental brain dysfunction with the neurons firing between the brain and the vocal cords. So his communication skills were very, very diminished, and it was a very internal battle, because he knew what he wanted to say, but then he had a dysfunction. He just couldn't communicate clearly. That's what he tried to explain to us in the session. So when I tuned into his energy, there was no lower emotions, negativity, anything. He just was very rational. He was beautiful. He was clear. He was conscious of his actions. He explained them incredibly clearly, like beyond my comprehension. Because I too, having grown up Catholic and talked about these things and had experiences with people who died, I had my own ideas, right? But Spirit always clarifies. That's the one thing that this work does. It clarifies things that I don't really understand, okay? So he explains that, and I have to tell you that her sitting there, I'm talking very clearly now, but when I was in front of her as an empath that really cannot always control the energies hitting and bombarding me, I could barely speak because of the grief that I felt that went through my body. And I tried to explain this on the other video, but I want to make it very clear. If you're not empathic and you're not a medium, you cannot know what we go through. It is extremely intense and extremely powerful, and it is not in our control. And I need to make that statement very clear, because I've heard some things on the internet lately that really want to stick my finger down my throat and puke at people saying whatever they want and not know what the hell they're talking about. So I'm here to clarify that some mediums and empaths that really do have energy bombarding them and going through their bodies have a very difficult time controlling those energies. So that's why many times on a video, you see me crying. There may be other reasons to that. Maybe there's past life trauma. Maybe there's childhood trauma that I don't have healed. I don't know. I have been working on healing for most of my life. So I can tell you that after 32 years of doing readings, that I still get bombarded by energy and have an emotional reaction. Just to clarify. Okay? So now I finished with her, had all this difficulty communicating to this woman, and felt all of her pain. She leaves. Now I'm booked for the day. So I have to continue on with my day and the other people that I have to read. After lunch, I have other bookings in the afternoon. So this young girl comes in. She's lovely. She presents herself beautifully. I don't feel any heavy emotions from her at all. So she sits down and I get into the reading. This man, this 21-year-old man, shows up again. Now, because I haven't tuned into him for hours, because the other one was in the morning, I'm sitting there and I immediately stop and I go, wait a minute. I know this energy. So again, a medium and an empath can be so sensitive that when the same energy comes back, we know it's the same energy. Even if we don't see the person in our vision, our third eye vision, we know the energy, right? So I'm taken aback. I'm like, wait a minute, I just read for this guy today. And so he comes in and he's like, this is my wife. And then she says, well, I'm his wife. So I joked with her because she had remember, her energy is not like his mom. She's crystal clear, no heavy emotions. So she says to me, oh yeah, I'm his wife. And I'm like, weren't you going to tell me? Or are you trying to test me to see if I would know who this guy was, right? So it was a little lighthearted moment in a very, a pretty difficult life experience and reading. So we go on and he describes stories of him watching her at her makeup table, doing her hair, getting ready for the day, getting ready for bed, brushing her hair. And it was beautiful. I did get emotional when he told the stories of him watching her and his baby. They had just had a baby. I don't know how many months old this baby was, but they had just had a baby. But he again reiterated why he did what he did. Now, I know this is a difficult subject. I know many of you are going to be triggered because you believe what you believe, and there's no changing that. And I'm not here to change your beliefs. You take these real life experiences, because that's all I draw from. I can't make this shit up. I mean, if you told me 5 years before that session, oh, you're going to read for some suicide cases, I would have said, oh, no, I'm not. That's too heavy. I don't want to do that. That's my personality trying to make a decision. But then the spirit and the soul team takes over. And I can't imagine in this day and age why people don't understand this. I just don't get it. And the craziness about people talking about subject matter they have no business talking about. I just don't get it. And that's why I have to keep going. I thank those people in their ignorance and what they're sharing. I thank you, because that is what's propelling me to keep telling my stories, my life experience, what it's like, and the difficulties and challenges it is to live as a medium and an empath. So I thank you, because there's so much more to tell and share. So let's continue with the beautiful ending of this very difficult reading. Since I was a minister at the church, the following Sunday, I did my sermon. And after that, and I tell this story very often, after that, the instructions from the people of running the church are, after the last prayer benediction, which you pray over the congregation and you bless everybody, before they leave the church, then as the last song is playing, the minister is supposed to quickly zip down the aisle and get to the back door of the church, before anybody leaves the church. Now, it's a hidden joke. This is not in the church instructions, but I live this, so I always joked about it like, oh my God, when I finish the benediction, I better run down that aisle and get over to that door. And the joke was, I have to beat the first person who gets out of that church. And you say, well, why would you have to do that? Because in the church world, it's unspoken. It's an unspoken thing that you have to be willing to greet the people that just came to the sermon. And if they have to share anything, you have to be there for them. That's another part of that work. You just have to be there for the people. And in the churches I worked in, that was always true. It's not true for every church. I'm not making an assumption. Please hear me clearly. I'm not making an assumption about all churches. I'm just telling you the churches I worked in, that's what I had to do. So I get to the back of the church, and this woman comes up to me, and she's beautiful. Her hair's beautiful, makeup, and she's dressed lovely. And I'm just assuming she's going to thank me. And she did. She came up to me and she said, thank you. You have no idea what you've done for me. I don't think you'll ever understand. So I'm looking at this woman. I don't know who she is. And I'm like, oh, well, you're welcome, just being cordial. And she says, no, I'm the woman you just read for early this week, whose son committed suicide. So I was like, oh, you look amazing and you feel amazing. Like, again, the empath, I'm tuning in right away to her energy. And she had no grief. None. And of course, she's giving me credit, but I'm doing the work. I'm committed to doing the work, yes. And then there's my soul, my light, and all the other lights and beings that are working with me, which you can see on this channel. There are a lot of beings that communicate with me on different levels and from different dimensions. So I had to do this video to tell this amazing story and how the miracle of lifting the grief happened for this woman in a matter of days. And I know that grieving a child is the worst. It's got to be the worst trauma to have to live through and survive. So I knew this was going to be a touchy subject, but I just know that we have to address these things. And I, as a medium, and the experiences I have to share. So let me tell you another shorter story about another suicide case. A young woman booked me, and this was down in Florida. I used to have a little office, and I used to do healing massage work. I was a licensed massage therapist, and I was doing readings out of the office. So this young woman comes in, and she too is really distraught, but she has not only the grief, but the surface energy is rage and anger. So again, she comes in, this energy bombards me. You can't know, if you're not an empath, you can't know how difficult this is. It's impossible. The energy, now you don't have to be an empath to feel energy. We can have empathy for people and feel some of the energy that emotes from people. Yes, that's an innate human trait. But the empath that has the ability to have energy flow through the body and take over the reactions. Because I have to read I guess it's because my soul said, you're going to have to read energy and you're going to have to be that sensitive. I really do assume that. I assume that my soul chose the energies in this body, in this makeup of a human body, and that my antenna is that tuned for that stuff. Now, talking to empaths out there, when I was young, I didn't know what the hell was going on because I was changing all the time. And this still happens now, right? But I can sit and pause and let the energy run through. If I'm not doing a reading and I'm just picking up on mass consciousness, which is happening every day now, everything that mass consciousness is spewing out into the ethers, I can generally feel. Now, it's fine if I'm reading the energy, but if it comes into the body, it can throw me way off. Way off. And as you see, sometimes that happens in a video. So the next case with this young woman, she's sitting there, and the energy is emoting off her, and it's going through me, and I'm like, oh my God, I knew I was in for a challenge. So immediately I see another girl, but she's sitting. The vision is really interesting because she's sitting calmly with an older man in a library. I can see all the high cases of books. I see the round table, and he's there talking to this girl. So she starts screaming uncontrollably, and it was a very difficult session. And everybody in the building heard it. It was brutal. She was screaming at her sister. It turns out they were twins, and her twin sister overdosed. So, as you can imagine, the survivors have to try to get through this, and this is not easy. That's why I'm doing these videos. I have to start talking about the real life situations of people. It's not good enough for me to keep talking about 5D and ascension symptoms and moving past and being in airy fairy land with all the multidimensionals. That's lovely. But as a medium, I also know that you're out there struggling with something, just like I do. I've got things I'm struggling with emotionally. So we have to address these things. We can't be airy fairy, fake positive all the time. We just can't do it. I've been in the trenches with people's deep, dark emotions, and that's my calling, is to help people get through in any way that I can. And I'm telling you right now, and I will repeat this till the day I die, this is not easy work. But when it's on your soul as a calling, you can't get out of it. Okay? So, she's having an episode. I'm asking for all the help I can get to get through this reading and bring the information. So then I go back to the vision, and the man is her father. And he's explaining his daughter can't speak yet. This never happened since then. That was the only reading that I ever did where the soul could not speak. So again, they're teaching me things I don't understand, right? The first suicide case was smooth from the other side. I understood. I had clear vision. It was, and he was rational. This soul died of an overdose, completely different energy, right? So now I have to let them show me and listen to the dad explain why he's there. So he tells me she had difficulty in her crossing over, and he's coaching her to acclimate, literally, to acclimate and help her let go of her physical life. Profound. You can't sugarcoat this stuff. This is what this man is saying. Now, did that help the twin who was alive? At that moment, no. I didn't get a miraculous call back from her that said her grief was gone. She left there feeling as broken as she walked in. And that's all there is to say about it. So, two completely different cases, same subject matter, suicide. So when you make a blanket statement, be very, very careful. Blanket statements do not hold truth. We have to stop assuming we know there's one statement for all. It is not true. I cannot make a statement about suicide that's true for all suicide cases. I cannot do that, and you shouldn't either. And the other thing is, if you don't know about a subject matter, why not back out and stop making comments that are illogical, ignorant, silly even? Let's get more aware of what's coming out of us and try to be the change we want to see in this world. If we would take our responsibility of our lives more serious, we could use the power that we're given to make the changes we want to see. And I know many people are, but many people are not. So with that, thank you for watching. I appreciate you very much. Please try and be supportive. And if you want something personal, a personal session, my email is below. Thanks again.